Hello, welcome back to this look at my old superhero drawings from my childhood. Last week we ended on the Green Panther, and I was talking about the action figure I used to have that kind of inspired the character initially when I was really young, that would eventually morph into this. And I said he was like a jungle Iron Man, but that wasn't true. That was just, I think I was projecting because of the Green Panther part. But it was actually called Samurai Armor Iron Man. If you want to look it up, you just look Samurai Armor Iron Man up and you'll see the green Iron Man. He had lots of blades and stuff on him. It was a cool toy. I wish I knew where it was. It might still be somewhere around here. I don't know. But anyway, we'll move on with new characters now. First up here is Hardcase. Now, the thing with Hardcase is I wanted to have a Punisher type character, but he doesn't. He has a different origin story than Punisher. Like, he operates like Punisher, but his origin story is actually taken from Powerpuff Girls for inspiration. The Powerpuff Girls had an episode about a police officer that was jealous of the Powerpuff Girls, and in that he was kind of incompetent and like made to look stupid. In this case, Hardcase was a police officer in I think New York. But he was a police officer who felt like the rising superhero population, once Vibranium was becoming more widespread and there was more superheroes all over the place, he thought they were too focused on like glamour and being celebrities or whatever. And whether that's true or not, that's how he felt. And eventually, he decided he was going to kind of tackle the less marketable crime, basically. Like, fighting superheroes and stuff will get you on the front page of the news, and while in this universe not every superhero is doing that, Hardcase felt like he should be a superhero who wasn't doing that. So I don't think he had any powers or anything like that. He just had, you can kind of see he's got a gun here. But he was just a former police officer who became a vigilante. I don't remember if he was actually like, it's possible he was supposed to have been fired from the police force or something like that. I don't really remember, but he basically just goes around and kind of is like this anonymous superhero. Like, he has a superhero name, unlike like Bob Chaser. He's got Hardcase. That's more like a nickname. I think that like gangs or the types of people he would be cracking down on would have called him. And I don't think he was going to have his own stories. I could be wrong about that, but I think he was mostly going to be like a deuteragonist type character, like somebody who would come into other superhero stories and be like a counterpoint to them. But anyway, that's Hardcase. Moving on, we have Henshin here. I don't remember what Henshin means. I'm trying. It's Japanese. I remember the character was supposed to be Japanese, and it probably means like monster or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But basically, Henshin was supposed to be an analog to like the Hulk. He was supposed to be that type of character, but his story was a little bit different than like Bruce Banner's. So basically, Henshin's origin is that I had mentioned that there was a scientist in America who was working on like a way to create like a super soldier, and before the alien rock that gave everybody superpowers came to Earth, and in Japan there was also a Japanese scientist working on that, and his when he used it on himself did not react the way he thought it would, and basically basically a lot of his traits were supposed to be like what you would get from steroids, just turned up to like 11 or 12. Then that he became like this huge hulking creature. He's not a separate personality, but he's just too clouded by like I don't want to say roid rage, but by something along those lines. He's too he's just a destructive force, and he doesn't. He can't change back. He's kind of stuck like this until the end of his story, and he would be like the Hulk. He would be a protagonist in his own stories, where he would kind of be struggling to regain his humanity, and would encounter other people and have like character development there. But then at the same time, if you crossed over into somebody else's story, he would probably be more like a villain or the antagonist of that. I put him on the hero side just because of his inspiration from the Hulk, who's typically classified as a hero. But I think he would kind of go back and forth there, because he was meant to be sort of an unpredictable element in this universe. And eventually he would have been cured, and that would have been it. Like, his story had a beginning, middle, and end, and once it was over, he would have just been like a scientist character. And as a scientist, he probably still would have been involved in other stories and stuff, but he would no longer be Henshin unless I needed to contrive a reason to bring that character back for some reason. But that was that character. Moving on, Hirameku. Okay, this was I remember her now. She was another character in that superhero team I was talking about that I started in college. That was that I just made a lot of members for, and they're all in here, but I don't remember a lot of them because I was right before I stopped making these. But she was a member of that team. I'm trying to remember what her actual powers were. I'm sure I have it written down somewhere because I was trying to keep better records by this point, but I don't remember for sure. But she had like a yellow and black costume, I remember. But I can't remember what her actual, like, what her superpower was. But she was a member of that team, basically. And that's kind of all I really have to say about her, unfortunately. She was an Asian American, I think Chinese descent, but I don't remember what her powers were, unfortunately. Okay, moving on to Iceberg. So I mentioned in the first episode of this, Iceberg is probably maybe the oldest character here. Like, him and Green Panther both date back to a time that I can barely remember. But basically, when I was first starting to make superheroes, what I was doing was I was taking my Marvel coloring books. I had a few Marvel coloring books and just tracing them and making changes to them. So I had like a ninja character that was a trace of Spider-Man, and Iceberg was originally Wolverine. He had the big like headpiece that Wolverine has, except it was all made of ice. And eventually I changed that, obviously. But this is also one of the few characters I actually wrote a story for. In like junior high or high school, I actually wrote a story, printed it out, drew up a cover with colored pencil, and stapled it to the story. And I don't know where that is, if it still exists. It may not, but basically the story was his origin story. The villain from that story is in here too. We'll get to him when we get to the villains much later. But his origin story is that he was an FBI agent who was investigating this criminal organization that was basically shipping and moving around illegal Reglanium, or Reglanium type mixture that was like liquefied, and they were moving around these tubs. And it might have been the same organization that was doing the abductions I mentioned about the in like Bones and the Avengers origin stories. But basically, he was running a sting operation on that organization, and ends up running into one of the hired muscle that's working for them, and a fight ensues, and basically the whole place starts going up in fire, and there's this big explosion of the Reglanium substance that gets on both him and the guy he's fighting, and he gets thrown into like this freezer area in this warehouse. And so like this version of Reglanium kind of combines you with other things. It was meant to, they were trying to form a way to control what the effects of Reglanium, because it seemed random, and they had managed to find a way to make it so it could combine you with things. And so basically he falls in this freezer, and he gets these ice powers, and he's permanently like encased in ice. And it's not really shown here, but the way it would be described in the stories is that he looked almost like a corpse that was just frozen over, except he could, move and talk and stuff, and the ice didn't behave like ice because he could move in it. But with this new power, he starts chasing down the guy who he was fighting, who got fire powers out of the incident because of the fire of the explosion that got the stuff on him in the first place. And he's like wreaking havoc because he's kind of like how Iceberg is always covered in ice. This guy's always covered in fire, and he's basically panics and starts wreaking havoc. And Iceberg manages to catch him. And the whole idea was that you would think ice would be weak against fire, but while Iceberg's trying to freeze him, the ice is melting and becoming water, and it starts falling onto him. Or like in the climax of the story, Iceberg's like on top of him, and the ice is melting and putting out the fire, and then refreezing, and basically the guy dies. Iceberg kills him, and that was the story that I wrote. And then he would go on to have more adventures as a more traditional type superhero eventually, but probably I could have done some interesting stuff with him being a government agent. I think there was supposed to be a story where they tried to recruit him. Sorry about that, I had a phone call, so I don't remember exactly where I was, but I think I was saying that Iceberg was going to be somebody that they were recruiting for the Superheroes of America, which was the government-funded superhero group, and he wasn't going to be part of that, though, because he didn't fit the gimmick of being like a parody of one of the main headliners of the Marvel and DC. Anyway, that's Iceberg, one of my oldest characters. Moving on, here's Insect Man. So Insect Man was an insect man. He had bug powers. I think that he had these like bug wings, and he could fly, and he probably had other insect-based powers, a la like Spider-Man, like an enhanced strength and durability and agility about that level. And I think he had like a girlfriend character that was a superhero. I don't remember who she was, but I remember him mostly serving to operate as like her boyfriend. I don't think he was the main star of the two of them, but they worked together, and I don't remember a whole lot about him beyond that. Like I don't remember his origin story or anything. I think I mostly just wanted a bug superhero, and I kind of started creating things for him after that point. Moving on, the Iron Shadow. This is one of the characters on the front who was Batman. This is obviously drawn off of a Batman drawing. But his story is actually different than Batman's. I think he operated similarly, but more or less, the Shadow was the first superhero in this universe, and we'll get to him later. But after he was forcibly retired, there was a couple of people that came up as kind of replacement superheroes during the like interim periods between the Shadow retiring and Viglanium becoming a thing, and people being able to get superpowers. So the Iron Shadow didn't have superpowers, but he was trying to recreate the effect that the Shadow had on the populace, because by the time he was retired, it was a big cultural figure. And so he dresses all in black like Shadow did, and just tries to carry that on, but he's a lot more excessive and less restrained than the Shadow, so he's sort of along those lines where he's blurring the line between an actual superhero and like a dangerous vigilante. He's not quite crossed that line yet, but enough so that he would mostly butt heads with other characters. So that was him, but he wasn't like a huge character, but because my cover image was meant to reference this DC encyclopedia and the line up there, he ends up taking the place of Batman because he was the most Batman looking character I had. Moving on here though, this is Justice. Justice was part of that teen superhero group, and so is the person next. I don't remember a lot about him though, like what his deal was. He's got like a real generic name, so that doesn't help jog my memory any. I vaguely remember drawing him. I think he had some kind of relationship with Drake, like maybe him and Drake were brothers, I don't know. Or maybe I was wrong about Drake not having anyone he sidekicked for, and this was who Drake was supposed to sidekick for, but Drake was the important one, so I don't remember, but that's Justice. I don't remember a lot about him. Lady Anysize was a member of the teen superhero group that I had mentioned. Her power was that she could be any size. You see, that's where the name comes in. She could grow or she could shrink. Basically, along the same lines of Ant-Man, she would grow, but she would lose a lot of her speed and coordination. She could shrink, but obviously she would be small. But she would still have kind of proportionate strength, so she would still be able to fight and stuff like that. But she didn't have any superpowers beyond that. And she was supposed to be like kind of a goth character. Like she has this little design under her eye. I think was meant to look like an Eye of Horus. And she's got like a tattoo here, but that was her deal. Was that she was like a goth chick who could grow or shrink, and she was part of this teenage superhero group. Lady Morrow, moving on. Lady Morrow was Bones' sidekick, or partner, not sidekick. They were partners, they were equals. I was hoping I would remember when I see her. This is based off of a famous drawing of Jean Grey as the Phoenix. But Lady Morrow, I'm trying to remember her powers. I remember she's got this M shape over her bust here that connects into the design on her arms. I remember really liking the design of her outfit when I made her. But yeah, she was Bones' partner. I think she was she had some kind of psychic ability. I think the name makes me think that she could like see into the future, and I know I had at least one character who could see like a certain amount of time into the future, but it was like very specific. Like she could only see what was going to happen exactly that amount of time ahead, and that might have been this character. I don't remember for sure, but I think that was it. That she could kind of see like the most likely possible future and then avert it, more or less. And so her and Bones worked together, and in kind of the same vein as the Avenger, fighting the people that gave them the powers because they did not ask for them. Though hers are a lot less gruesome than Bones's were. But yeah, that's her. Louis Longarm. Louis Longarm, I don't remember if he was one of the teenagers or not. He is a teenager, but I don't remember if he was part of that group. But he had stretchy powers. Like, it's not just that his arms are long. He could stretch, not really like the full-on like Plastic Man type where he could like take other shapes and stuff. He was just kind of like Stretch Armstrong. He could just stretch out like limbs or like his neck or his torso and get longer or retract back to the default. And there was some growth here because I think his hand is supposed to be growing here too. But he couldn't like turn into like a shape like Plastic Man can. If he could, he would probably need a different outfit instead of these like street clothes. But a large part of this was that I wanted to have a character whose arms could get longer, who had these horizontal stripes on the arm, because I just thought that was like a cool effect. I had seen that done in Rurouni Kenshin. There was somebody that he fought in that anime who had stripes on his arms like this, and in the anime they made some reference about how it made it hard to gauge how long his arms were, and it threw off Kenshin while trying to dodge his attacks. And I don't know how much that was going to play into Lewis here, but that's the reason he's got those stripes. And I think something about those stripes just looked like something an emo kid would wear, and that kind of narrated the rest of his outfit, I guess, and like his hair and stuff. But that's Lewis. And I think my timer got thrown off because of the phone call that I got interrupted with. But I think I'll go ahead and talk real quick about Lightning and Lightning Rod here, and then we'll call it quits. So Lightning, the reason he's dressed like this, Lightning was a character who was meant to be kind of like a callback to really early superheroes, like the pre-radiation superheroes when lightning was kind of magic. But he was a character, I think in the 20s, who got hit with like this freak accident that threw him into like the developing electrical system in America. And he just ends up becoming lightning and bouncing around inside these electric cables. And because of how much faster light moves than the rest of us do, he's like trying to process and reform, but he can't. And he's just bouncing around for like almost 100 years, I guess, and then eventually pops out. He manages to eventually reform himself into like a human shape, and so he comes out and he's all like glowy and electric, and it's way into the future by this point, and that's it. Once he comes out, he's like this old-timey guy, so he's got kind of this Captain America type fish out of water, readjusting to modern society thing going on, while also having these electric powers instead of Captain America's powers. So that was basically it. His hair, like, is all spiky because of the electricity. Like, that wasn't his hairstyle in the 20s. And that's him though. And then Lightning Rod, I don't know why he was called that. Like, obviously this is a drawing of the Flash that I recreated for this character. His outfit was black with a yellow lightning on it. I remember all those things. I don't remember why he's called Lightning Rod, because I don't think he like attracts lightning. Like, I think he's just a super speedster guy. So I think the name was probably dumb. But that's it. And that's really all I remember about this character. Was that he was super fast, but he also had this like lightning element beyond just the aesthetics on his tights. Like, you can see the light kind of coming off of him, and his eyes are glowing too. It looks like there's like light coming out from his eyes. But yeah, that's all I really remember about him. I think we're going to stop there for now. I'm not sure exactly how long I've been talking, but I think that's a good stopping point. So thanks again for watching. Come back next time. We've still got a lot of characters to go through, so there's a lot more episodes of this to come. But I'm really enjoying looking at all these with you guys, and I hope to see you all then. Bye.